Hello, and welcome to the Adrenal Fatigue podcast. I'm Angela Rocchio, and with me today is my partner in crime, Danielle Ziz.
Hello, everybody.
Thank you for joining us, Danielle. Danielle is the other half of the Adrenal Recovery Collective, and she is a holistic nutritionist who has been working with people for over a decade with chronic fatigue and adrenal issues. So we're so excited to have her here today to talk about blood sugar. Blood sugar issues and adrenal fatigue are very intertwined, right?
Totally.
And oftentimes people don't even know that the symptoms they have anything to do with blood sugar. Am I right?
Yeah, wait till we start reading off some of these symptoms to you guys today. I think there's going to be a lot of connections to put together if you haven't considered the blood sugar picture before, if you've been struggling with fatigue for a while. So this is going to be a great conversation.
Awesome. So that's kind of where I want to start. I want people to understand the sign of having blood sugar issues. What are some of the symptoms that we're going to be seeing?
Right. So, okay, it can happen in two different ways. So you can be hypoglycemic or hyperglycemic. With hypoglycemia, it's symptoms like when you feel, it's like the hangriness that we feel. So you can feel shaky, feeling cold or clammy, not sleeping well, like sleep can be influenced, feeling that hangriness, like I said, so like mood changes or feeling like easily irritable, lack of energy, of course, hunger, food cravings, especially for sugar. Could be things like feeling your heart racing, like a racing heart, blurry vision, pale skin, and a feeling of just anxiety. So those are some examples of hypoglycemia. And when we talk about hyperglycemia, when your blood sugar is more on the high side, is when you experience things like dry mouth. These are the signs generally correlated with like pre-diabetes, and people will say, like, if you experience these symptoms, like, make sure you go to your doctor. And it's things like dry mouth, increased thirst, increased urination, weakness, blurred vision, and headaches. You can see how sometimes it's kind of hard to differ between the two.
Sure, there's some overlapping for sure.
For sure. But look at those symptoms of hypoglycemia: shakiness, mood changes, feeling like irritable, lower stress tolerance, right? Lack of energy, food cravings, fast heartbeat, feeling anxious, restless sleeps. What does that even sound like?
Yeah.
Telltale symptoms of the biggest complaints that we see day in and day out in our Facebook group, which is focused all about adrenal fatigue, right? So there is a huge overlap here, and the two are so connected.
I remember in my own journey of recovering from a stage 3 adrenal fatigue, I had a lot of these symptoms, and it took me a while to actually realize that this is what was at the root of it, was blood sugar imbalances. So yeah, I think this is really helpful that we're talking about this. We get this question all the time in our group, so I'm really glad we're talking about this. Okay, so can you explain why managing blood sugar when you have adrenal fatigue is so important?
So it's been known for a while that people experiencing ongoing hypoglycemia or blood sugar issues often have adrenal issues happening behind the scene. And I'm going to explain why in just a second. But people with adrenal fatigue and the people that we work with day in and day out almost always have some blood sugar issues going on behind the scenes. So the two really go hand in hand. And technically, like, the reasons why this happens, I want to explain just really simply in a nutshell what's going on hormonally, so you can kind of paint that picture in your head.
Great.
In a nutshell, like I said, adrenal hormones play just such an enormous role in helping to regulate our blood sugar levels day to day, minute to minute. So of course we have insulin. Insulin's that hormone, the one that we hear about all the time when we talk about blood sugar issues and diabetes. Insulin is a hormone made in your pancreas, and what its role is to help bring sugar into the cell. So insulin is that hormone that helps energize your cells. You can think of it that way. Ideally, insulin would be released in a reasonable amount and would be responded to properly to help regulate your blood sugar. So you're not experiencing those symptoms we just talked about. You're not experiencing the highs or the lows. It's keeping things nice and balanced. And then we also have cortisol. So cortisol works alongside other stress hormones like adrenaline and epinephrine to help raise blood sugars and help control this balance. So the two work really closely to help keep things balanced for you. So when we're under chronic stress, a couple things are happening, right? So when we're under chronic stress and our body enters fight or flight, your need for energy goes up because your body's like, okay, I got to run away from this bear. I got to deal with this stressor. So in that scenario, your cells need more energy. So then insulin is going to go up to help bring more sugar into your cells. And at the same time, you have your stress hormones like cortisol pulling sugar out of like glucose stores, so like from your tissues. So then we have this high blood sugar, right? This is how your body's responding to stress. It's like bringing the energy out. Okay, so the thing is, and where issues can start to arise are when we have low stress hormones. So this happens as we move into more advanced stages of adrenal fatigue. It becomes more difficult for the body to respond like this, to respond to the increased need for energy. And how do you think that makes us feel if we're not able to actually make that energy and create that energy that the body's calling for? There's going to be symptoms associated with that. So in stressful situations, like I said, we start calling for more energy, and that raises our insulin levels. And if there's not enough glucose, then we're going to feel those hypoglycemic symptoms, the shakiness, the irritability, the anxiety, the cravings for sugar. So in cases where we have high stress hormones, like the earlier stages of adrenal fatigue, when sugar is just always kind of being called for, pulled from stores and brought into the cells, like those hormones are high, you can start to see how when you get caught in this chronic state of demanding more and more and more and high and low fluctuations, and then just demanding so much of your body on an ongoing basis, how symptoms of insulin resistance can start to develop. And it can just lead to this whole cascade we get stuck in with adrenal fatigue.
Okay, so insulin resistance, that might be new to some of our listeners. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so insulin resistance is when your muscles, your fat, and your liver, they just don't respond well to insulin. And they can't effectively use glucose from your blood for energy anymore. So it happens in different stages. It could be a really little bit, it could be a lot. So, but generally speaking, insulin resistance is kind of like a group all. So it can include like type 2 diabetes, but it also can include just the symptoms of pre-diabetes as well. So when you think of insulin resistant, just think that your body's not responding to the insulin well anymore. And this is directly influenced by this whole hormonal like situation that I just explained, where you just have so much going on. Like you have insulin constantly bringing sugar into the cell, but then you have it, constantly being pulled from stores, and the fluctuations, your body just stops responding properly.
Sounds like a lot of chaos.
Yeah.
Okay, so if one is experiencing insulin resistance, what types of things are they going to notice in their body?
Okay, so some of the things you might notice, and these would be symptoms that you kind of feel ongoing, right? So it's fatigue, feelings like constant hunger. One of the big ones is inability to lose weight. And one of the telltale signs that we look for is that belly fat. So that beer belly, so that like kind of round belly around your midsection, that's often a sign that you have some insulin resistance going on. But generally it could be like fatigue after meals.
Okay.
So
Great.
this can lead to things like further hormonal imbalance. It can lead to situations we see like PCOS. This is directly correlated, polycystic ovarian syndrome. A lot of women experiencing that today. High cholesterol and high triglycerides in your blood, increased fat storage, thyroid issues, like it all connects.
Yeah, so it's not something you want to like go unnoticed and to not address this.
Yeah.
Yeah, really important. So this is a really good conversation. I hope this is helpful for all you listeners out there. So can we talk about like the best place to start here? What should people out there that are listening who feel like they might have this going on, what should they be focusing on?
Yeah, and like you don't have to be thinking about all these technicalities that we just talking about, right? But it's just having this mindset of what's going on hormonally when you have this stress picture influencing your blood sugar. And then one of the worst things we do, and I'm going to jump into where we should start, but like I think a lot of us get stuck fueling ourselves when we feel like tired and worn down and we're on this kind of up high on this roller coaster of highs and lows is we get caught using caffeine and sugar as our crutch,
Sure.
and we are leaning on them so heavily. We can't get through the day without coffee or
Right.
that bag of chips, so those starchy carbs. Like we're relying on that kind of stuff to function. And so that can be a really hard cycle to break. So this is the perfect place to kind of start, is understanding like, okay, I'm caught on the roller coaster. I have adrenal issues. I know I'm really stressed, and I know now that blood sugar issues are playing a role here. So what can I do, right? So gentle movement or exercising it within your limits. If you have adrenal fatigue, obviously you want to be not going too crazy if you're super burnt out, but I want you to move every day in some shape or form, whether it's yoga, stretching, moving your body. That's really important. Exercising, they say just even 30 minutes a day can make a huge difference and be super supportive with this. And then of course, the food part is a big picture. So thinking about not going too long without eating, just to like not further exacerbate that need for stress. If your body needs energy, totally give it energy, right? This is why healthy snacking is so important when you have adrenal issues, because the stress hormones and your blood sugar are like doing this thing and they're kind of in a state of crisis. So we need to just like give it something, and hopefully something really good and really nourishing to fuel it, right? So think of like
Yeah.
a nice, healthy, balanced snack. When you think carbs, mostly veggies, a little bit of grains, starchy veggies as well. And then you want to have your protein and your fat. That's a perfect way. And not eating too much. Think about, if you've heard of the glycemic index, what that is like index. You can just quickly Google it and you'll see a list of tons of different types of foods on there that it shows where they fall on this glycemic index, which essentially means like how quickly and how high do they raise your blood sugar levels when you eat these foods. So foods at the top of this list would be like white breads, um, like just typical refined sugars, rice, like honey, maple syrup, these types of foods. Take a look at that list and consider how much of a load you're having at each meal. You just don't want it to be too high. You want to give your body the glucose and the energy it needs, but you don't want to give it so much that you have an instance where your insulin's now super, super high and you're just adding to that stress picture by overeating. This is one of the reasons that we're always talking about like manage your portions, because managing your portions is just something that can really quench and be so stress supportive. You know, we're low, we're feeling hypoglycemic, then we eat like this huge meal. We eat a couple slices of pizza and a soda. Yeah, we feel so much better for a couple minutes, and then like we're crashing again. It doesn't feel good. So balanced portions with quality food is the perfect place to start. Add a little bit of exercise, and then guess what? Do your best to calm your stress. So what can you do to calm your nervous system down? Because this is playing a role too, right? So meditating, getting out into nature, doing stuff that brings you joy, making sleep a priority, all these things that we talk about all the time on these podcasts to help manage your stress levels. All of this comes into play, and they all work together to make you feel so much better.
Okay, Danielle, so I want to go back to the food piece, if that's okay. I know some of the listeners might have been thinking like, okay, great, I need to manage my portions, but like that kind of feels like a big thing, like a big overwhelming thing. So what can people do if they need support with this whole portion control to manage their blood sugar?
Yeah, we definitely don't want you to feel overwhelmed with all of this. That's why we work with people closely every day. If you need help, there are resources out there that can help you. We have our recipe book, which has a portion control guide in it with recipes that are already balanced. So you get a meal plan with balanced portions laid out for you really clearly. But maybe you want to take a bigger look at the picture. Like a lot of people, I know the diet can feel complicated. So this is where taking a step back, looking at how you've been eating, and even just asking yourself this question, I think can be really helpful. Like, what do I feel is not serving me in my diet? Where do I feel like my weakest link in my diet is? Like, ask yourself that question. If you do need support, we help people with this every day in our programs, giving them crystal clear, customized meal plans with like exact portions that you should be having. It can feel overwhelming, especially when you're tired, but it doesn't have to be as difficult as you think. we're
don't have
really
to do it
passionate
all
about
alone.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So if that feels overwhelming, we have resources for you. So perfect. Thank you for sharing that. All right, Danielle. So I want to talk about fasting because we hear a lot about this these days, especially with intermittent fasting going on. And there's talk about how that helps with blood sugar levels. I really want to know your thoughts about this.
Yes, I do definitely think there's a time and place for intermittent fasting. And some people just do so well with it. And it makes such a big difference. And it can really help kind of reduce those spikes. So it can be great. But I want to say this, if you're struggling with adrenal fatigue, I think you just need to be careful. And I don't want you to force yourself into anything just because you heard on a podcast or you read somewhere that this would be good for you to try. It's really about tapping into how you feel when you do it. With adrenal fatigue, I think if you are going to play around with it, I think give yourself a longer feeding window. So give yourself a longer chunk of the day to eat. Sometimes, so with intermittent fasting, people, for those of you who don't know, people will just take like a certain amount of time each day that they can eat, and then they fast for the rest of the day. So for some people, they do a really short window, like 4 or 5 hours. But you can make that window as long as you want, right? There's flexibility there, and that's what I want you to play with what works for you. So if you're burnt out, if you have adrenal issues, a longer feeding window is going to be important. Look at what we just talked about what's going on when your body literally has no energy and is unable to like pull energy from stores to balance things on its own. Food can be so supportive. So when you're depriving your body of food, when your body actually needs that energy, you're actually just going to be making things worse.
Yeah.
So be mindful. I recommend it in some cases, but like for the most part, when you're burnt out, I don't. I just think feed yourself when you need to feed yourself. Adrenal fatigue, we've said it before, we'll say it again. It's a condition of depletion. When you're super depleted, you need to nourish yourself back up, not deprive your body. But for those of you guys who do want to try it and maybe start incorporating a longer feeding window into your world, try not restricting too much in the morning, I'd say. So mornings can be really hard for people with adrenal fatigue. Like we wake up, it's really hard to get going in the morning. So fuel yourself in the morning well. Don't try to like push your first meal till noon or something like that. It's not going to serve you. It's going to just make things worse. So have a really good breakfast, have a really good lunch, snack as you need to, have your dinner. If you feel like in the evening that problem eating in the evening is something that's kind of holding you back from recovering, this is where I think having maybe that intermittent fasting and kind of like a restriction in the evening can be really helpful. So having a cutoff time of eating, like I don't eat after 8 p.m. or 7 p.m. If this helps you get to bed earlier because you're a nighttime eater, you end up eating and getting this like second wave of energy late into the night because you had like a big meal and like, you're really stimulated at night. I think this could be a nice way to help kind of break that cycle. So give yourself a hard stop on eating time. See if it helps. So for some people, you'll be able to stop eating at around 7 or 8, go to bed at a reasonable time and sleep through the night. But like I said, blood sugar issues can cause sleep issues too. So if you really struggle with that, then maybe it's just not going to work for you and you need a little snack before bed to help you sleep through the night. So this is a really personal thing. That's how I would play with it if you want to play with it. But just be careful. I hope that
Yeah.
helps.
Yeah, I think that was helpful. And I think the eating late at night in general for, is cutting yourself off a little early is helpful for a lot of people for lots of different reasons, right? Like you mentioned. So I think that's a great tip of where to start if you want to play with this. Okay, so Danielle, is there anything else we should keep in mind before we
So
close?
I think the really cool thing about this and about the changes that we're talking about today, like simple tweaks to your diet, like getting off this roller coaster that you're on, the best part of it is that you can notice a difference in a couple days. Like you can notice a shift so quickly. So if you've been struggling for a while, like you can't afford to not try this and like tap into this. But again, I just want to remind everybody, it's like doing what feels right for you and not feeling like that you have to do what so-and-so in the forum is doing because they said it worked for them and that diet worked for them. I believe you can create your own amazing adrenal recovery diet that ties in whatever your beliefs are. If you want to do it keto, if you want to do it vegan or paleo, So you can do this whatever way that you want to do it is what I'm trying to say. But what it's just important that you're doing it properly. And if you need that confidence that you are doing it properly and that things are balanced and you're getting the nutrition that you need, that's what we help people with every day. That's what we're here for. Check out our adrenal recovery program or book a call with us. We'd love to chat more with you about this and how we help people every day do this with confidence and ease, because like Angela, like we were talking about, it doesn't need to be this huge overhaul, doesn't have to be a stressful thing. What we're trying to do is reduce the stress. You guys are stressed enough already.
Yeah, and I think what's so helpful about if you're working with us is that everybody's situation is different, right? Everyone's bodies are different, everybody's different symptoms. You know, some people are dealing with hypo, some people are dealing with hypo, some people are dealing with other autoimmune issues. And so the customized support that we can give um, in our programs is so key, because then we can really tailor it to what's going on for you and how, you know, that's you know, that's really strong, confident way to go. So if you desire that, it's there for you. Okay, cool. Thank you so much, Danielle. And I think with that, we're going to close this one. And it was so much fun to talk with you, Danielle. Thank you so much for really just getting nitty gritty here with this whole blood sugar and insulin resistance. And I learned a lot. I'm sure our listeners did too. Thank you so much.
Okay, I hope so. Thanks for having me, as
Mm-hmm.
always.
Yeah. Talk to you guys all soon.
Thanks,
Bye for now.
everybody. Bye.